Well, today we're going to have kind of like a clean, dirty talk. We're going to talk dirt. In a lot of urban centers today, you can go to local stores, maybe a grocery store, a garden center near you, and you can buy bags of dirt pre-made. But you really got to be careful with what's in those bags. A lot of this stuff may say earth or dirt, but when you actually open up the bag, there's all kinds of stuff in there that you don't really know what it is. I like to make my own. Now mind you, I live on some acreage here, so I've got the capacity to do that. I have some livestock, so I can make manure. I've got a hardwood and softwood forest. There's lots of leaf litter on the ground. I've got a wood chipper, and so I can make my own wood chips. I can also, it's got a big hopper, and I can also put some leaves in there and really break the stuff up. But I'm going to show you a way that you can make your own as well. And at least you can supplement what you can buy at the store if you absolutely have to. And you can end up with a really nice composite soil to really increase your vegetable yield. So let's come a little closer and I'll show you what I have. So I have two big piles of manure here. Well, really it's a mixture of manure, it's a mixture of shredded newspaper that I also put in the chicken pen. I do have some compost in here, particularly on the other pile is where I start my things. And this pile here has been here for about 8 months now. Now throughout the winter, when it would snow, the snow would hardly even stay on this pile because it would heat up so much. It's cooled down quite a bit, but it may be hard for you to see here, but I see all kinds of little bugs crawling on here right now in this pile. It looks kind of dry, but when I pick it up here, it's got a really nice consistency here. There is quite a bit of organic matter in here, but what you want with this kind of soil is you want to be able to make a ball and for it to have some consistency like this. This will hold the moisture quite well in a raised bed, which is where I do most of my gardening. And just going in through here now, I'm going to have to turn this over a little bit too because it hasn't quite decomposed quite enough. I have been putting some fresh stuff in here, but the further in I dig here, the more the soil, oh, I do have some bark in here as well, but the more the soil is really good. And I'm going to be able to add this at least to the bottom of some of my beds here. And as you can see, the soil down here is going to be a real nice additive to the new raised beds that I'm going to build this year. Nice and clumpy, and this will hold some moisture. So I'm going to be mixing this with some of the better soil that I have that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. Now this pile of dirt here may not look like much. Actually, it may look a little bit dry. But when you look in here, this is a mixture of a lot of dry leaves that I put in here last year, a lot of composted manure, and this is like really nice black dirt. Oh, look, there's some worms in here too. And this is what you really want in here as well. There's a little, where did it go? Oh, it just disappeared. But this nice mixture here will hold the moisture really, really well. And it will make a really nice addition to the soil mixture that I'm going to use. It's got a lot of organic matter in here too that will keep decomposing just a little bit. But it's nice and loamy. It's nice and light. Now it still has some old roots in that I'm going to filter out, and that a few sticks as well. But this has all helped with the aeration of this pile as well. And it's a sizable pile too. I'm just going to back up here so you can see. And I've moved this around with the bucket of my tractor quite a few times, and it literally just sits in the woods here in a section that I had to dig out to get some dirt to level off a spot for my sawmill. But it literally just sits in the woods. It does get sun. It's down the little woods road that I have. But it's been baking for about 1.5 years. And there's probably enough in here to fill about, I'm going to say about 5 raised beds that I'm going to be building. And I use all kinds of leaf litter that I get down in the woods like this. I just collect it, put it through my wood chipper so it breaks down nice and small. And again, if you can just make a pile of something like this anywhere in your yard. Now I had this covered with a tarp also for, I'm going to say, about 3 months, just to help it bake a little bit. Let me take another little bite in here. And this just looked like a pile of leaves and mulch and all that. But basically this is all it is, and it turns into some nice, really organic looking material. Just like that, and I can see a bunch of worms in there as well. Well, let's talk a little bit about biochar. Biochar is something I do a number of times during the year. I've got a number of these 5-gallon buckets. You can pick these up. Well, you can look on Facebook Marketplace or a few different places. This one's getting a little bit rusty. But what I do is I fill these with softwood or hardwood. Softwood is not as dense, but just junk pieces of wood that I have laying around. As you can see in my forest, I've got all kinds, but I do a lot of woodworking, and I end up with a lot of pieces of just junk wood. And what you want to do is you want to light this on fire, and when your wood gets very white, almost to the point where it's going to disintegrate and turn into just ash, you douse it with water really quickly so that it turns into charcoal. And charcoal like this buried in the ground will not disintegrate, it will not rot. As a matter of fact, it will last for 50 years. So this is good for your garden, but it has to be activated. So this, like this, not going to do much for your garden. So what you want to do is, I've got some big pieces here that aren't quite burnt enough, so I'll have to break these down. But what you want to do is you want to break these pieces into smaller pieces. So I've got a mallet here, and what I do over here on this table is I just break these up into smaller pieces here, and then they fall through the cracks. So what I do is I take one of these bins, I usually put it down underneath, and then I just scrape this all down until it falls down below. And I'm not going to do that right now because I'm not ready to activate another portion of it. But what I'm going to do eventually with this is I'm going to fill this to about 3/4 of the way. Then I'm going to take some fresh manure that I have. Now, I've mentioned before, I do have livestock here. I've got chickens and I've got some rabbits, but I'm going to take some fresh rabbit poop. Now, you may say, I don't have rabbits, so what do I do? Well, you can go to your local grocery store right now, or your farm supply store, or wherever they're selling bagged dirt, and you can buy yourself a bag of sheep manure or a bag of cow manure. Or if you know somebody that's got any kind of fresh manure, you can buy a bag of that and you mix it in with this. That's not possible, you say? Well, I don't want to gross you out, but human urine is something you can use. So a couple of bottles of that, you save it up for a few days, and you pour it over this mixture. Now you want small pieces, okay? This about this size is what you want, okay? And you pour it on this, put a lid on it, set it aside for about a month, and that'll activate it with good bacteria. And what this is going to do is, I mentioned this earlier, a piece about this size, if you were to unfold this with all of the cellular structure in this, it would take up about the space of a football field with all of the cells, the fibrous cells, all stretched out. And this would hold all of the good bacteria in your garden. Your garden needs good bacteria, the anaerobic bacteria in there to work in order to be activated, in order to have some anaerobic activity in your garden. So again, I usually make 3 of these buckets at a time, and I probably do this about 4 times a year. Now you don't need a lot in your garden, you really don't. This much here would probably do me about 5 big raised beds, and by raised beds I mean 4 feet wide by 8 feet long. And once this is done, you just basically scatter it in with your dirt, mix it in, leave it. You don't have to keep replenishing this every year. Once this is done, it's done. You leave it for 50 years, and I ain't gonna be here in 50 years. So I hope you find this helpful. Well, thanks for joining me for another episode of Dirt Talk, and we hope to see you next time. So happy planting, and hopefully next time we'll get into some real planting. Our weather's getting warmer here on the East Coast. So thank you, God bless you, and God bless Canada.